Hey there, today I'm going to make some oatmeal raisin bread. Started off adding a tablespoon of yeast. I already had a hot cup of, or 3/4 of a cup of hot water to get that started ahead of time. That way when it comes time to add it, you've already got it ready. It's had time to do its yeast thing, and you don't have to stop what you're doing and wait for it to what's the word on the ferment or whatever it is. You know, it's a yeast thing. Next, I'm going to add a cup of raisins. Now notice how I do this by holding it over the bowl so that any loose ones happen to just fall in the bowl. So technically you're only putting a cup of raisins in, but you see. And next we're putting in some, I think it's half a cup of oats. You can put a little more if you want. I wouldn't overdo it. I just happen to have some of these nasty instant oats from Save a Lot. Didn't much care for them as oatmeal, but they do all right in this bread. Now is a teaspoon of salt with my handy dandy measurer there. And now I am pouring a cup of boiling hot water, which I already had going on the stove. Thinking ahead here. And we're just going to dump that in there. And we're going to load up my dough hook on my new KitchenAid, which I love. If I can figure out how to get it on there. And lock it on there and turn it on just to give it a little stir. Might want to poke it around a little bit with a spatula just to make sure that hot water gets to all the oats, just to get them soaking and a little soft. Get ready for the mixture to come. Okay, next we're going to be adding 2 tablespoons of lard. I highly recommend using lard as opposed to oil. The oil may make it a little heavier, a little denser, but the lard just made it so light and fluffy. Oh, I love it. I am a believer. Of course, you can use butter too. Next item we're going to stick in here is some maple syrup. I used all my good maple syrup, the last time I made this bread, so all I have is this cheapy stuff. But calls for a 1/4 cup of syrup, or you can use molasses or sorghum or whatever you got on hand. A little more wouldn't hurt either. And go ahead and start mixing. I've got it on the lowest setting on stir right now. Okay, now it's time to add the flour. We're going to add 3 to 4 cups of flour. There's number 1. Once you have cup of flour number 1 in there, we're going to go ahead and add our yeast water that has had time to sit and ferment or whatever it is. Just go ahead and pour that in there after cup 1 of your flour. And then we'll go back to adding cup number 2 of flour. I just used all-purpose flour, white flour for this. Comes cup number 3. And that didn't quite have enough in my canister, so I have about 3/4 of a cup of flour, but that's within the recipe range, so that's fine. So I've kicked it up, I think, on number 2 on the mixer, and we're going to let that knead for about 8 to 10 minutes, probably closer to 10 minutes, and I even let it go over a lot of times. It just seems to, the more you knead it, the more it comes out, the better it comes out, the fluffier and lighter, and it just comes out better that way. Okay, about halfway through, I decided to stop the mixer and take a peek to see what the dough was looking like. I decided that it still looked a little bit too moist for being halfway through the kneading cycle, so I kind of scraped the bottom of the canister here to pour in the last of the flour I had. There's not much in there. It couldn't bring it up any more than to another quarter of a cup. That would have made it up to 4 cups of flour, which is what the recipe calls for. So I went ahead and did that. I didn't feel like opening another bag of flour. So put it back on and let it knead for another 5 minutes plus. Okay, it's been about 12 minutes or so. So I turn it off and see how it looks here. Oh, that looks good. You can tell just by looking down in the bowl. You see how it's nice and clean in the bottom there. There's a little around the edges that I'm scraping off with a spatula. That's okay. We'll just scrape it off and add it to the whole pile of dough here. And I'm going to let it rise in the same bowl, so I just use some cooking spray to lubricate the bowl. Move the dough out of the way. You can use butter if you want, or oil, or rub it down with some lard. It's up to you, or margarine, whatever you got, whatever you feel like you want to use. That's fine. So go ahead and pull the dough off the hook. And I love my KitchenAid with its powder-coated utensils. Comes off there so easily. And I'm going to give the dough another spritz with some of the cooking spray, since there's cooking spray all over the rest of the dough. When we go to knead it again a little bit later on, I don't know, it'll be there. What am I going to say? Okay, we put that by my wood stove, or nearby it, to let it rise, and here it is after an hour. Isn't it pretty? So I'm going to go ahead and punch it down in a gentler, kinder kind of way. And we're going to go ahead and knead it just a little bit, kind of fold it in on itself. I am not a good kneader by any means, so I'm just kind of lifting it and folding it in on itself. Turn, do it again, and so on and so on. And once you feel you've kneaded it enough, taken out your aggressions, and go ahead and pull it out of there and just dump it in your bread pan. I'm showing how clean the bottom of the mixing bowl is. Just put it in your bread pan and flatten it down, press it down to the bottom of the pan and kind of even it out best you can. And we're going to let that rise one more time. So we'll cover it with another dish towel, and I'm going to put it back over near my wood stove and give it about another hour. Here it is. It has been rising another hour, and voila! Look how big that is already. You'd swear it was ready to eat, but we still have to put that in a preheated oven at 350 degrees for 45 minutes. And wow, that was quick. Here is our finished Raisin Oat bread. Look at that. Oh, that's pretty. I don't care who you are. It's still a little warm. It's been setting a few minutes, not very long. But I'm going to go ahead and turn this out because I don't want it to get stuck in the pan, or I don't want the crust to get hard either. So I'm going to Just wrap it up in a dish towel or two to keep it covered, and it will keep the crust from getting so hard. I like mine a little soft. And here's the finished product, sliced open. Isn't that pretty? Give it a try.